Hello, welcome to Breadolicious. I'm Chef Frank, where we go over fresh artisan bread in the home. Today, a Georgian cheese bread. Ajorori hachapore. So without further ado, let's get cooking, y'all. So, when approaching bread, there's some fun things to have. There's also some good things I want you to be thinking about. First of all is baking stones, okay? A lot of you probably know what this is. This is a pizza stone, okay? However, it's relatively thin, okay? Ideally, you want a stone slab or a pizza stone that's about that thick, if you can see the difference, okay? That's very important in bread baking, and I'll tell you why. And while you're at it, invest in good pot holders. You don't want them to be too thin. You want something thick that you can use. But these would be too thin of a stone. Part of how bread works is it bakes on the stone slab. Once it goes on there, you want the residual heat to get that original rise in the bread, okay? So if it's too thin, it cools down too quickly, doesn't hold the heat as well. So that's something to bear in mind when you're shopping, doing artisan breads at home. So for a Georgian cheese bread, you have to form a boat. The other thing you're going to want to do, so we're about to shape our Georgian cheese bread boat, okay? What you want to do is to make sure you invest in a good digital scale. In the stores, you might see the small ones. That's all right, but remember, you're having to measure flour and everything. You want something to where you can put it on and still see your numbers. It's very important in baking that we're exact. A lot of measurements done by weight, okay? So to shape the boat itself, I'm using a plastic bench scraper for this. You want something pliable you can use, get in there, okay? And you want every ounce of dough possible. This dough has rested for an hour, but I'll go over with you on how to do that. I need about 9 ounces worth. We're doing 2 different kinds today. You think it might be a pain to add all these pieces, but it actually works out just fine. Another fun gadget is home rolling pins are fine, but if you can invest in one of these flat rolls, it makes your life a lot easier. What you do is you take a little bit of flour. Always have some flour available where you go. Get the rolling pin dusted up, then you just roll it. Now that's going to be a little sticky, I can already tell. No big deal. And I cleaned my counter at the same time. Bread's not as complicated as you think. And I'm just rolling along, kind of going into a square motion. Okay, one more time. And again, plastic bench scraper is nice. I can get that flour over here to my advantage and clean up after myself. Roll along, roll along. Alrighty, and that is ready to be shaped. You can always do a little bit of a stretch to make sure. That's looking pretty good to me. Excellent. I'm going to go ahead and put it on my baking sheet tray lined with parchment paper. Okay, trust me, you want that. And then what you do is you do this little roll, okay? Nice, almost like rolling a beanbag. And you just go around the circle, ain't no big deal. Only a little bit, about 1/2 inch. Okay, and then you kind of dab with your finger to press that in. Then you do the other side. And I'm kind of twisting, tucking, twisting, tucking, twisting, tucking, twist, tuck, twist, tuck, twist, tuck, twist, tuck. And then some final presses of those in. Don't worry about divots with your fingertips. Remember, we're going to cover this in cheese, so it doesn't matter. And then you twist in. And you bring these two ends together and you do a twist and then a press. Okay? Bring these two ends together, do a twist, and then a press. And then you can make it out a little bit. Don't want to pull it too hard, you just kind of want to guide it. And that looks pretty even to me. Okay? And then I seal those ends, and then we just let that rest, typically for about 20 minutes. My oven's on. This is a fairly warm spot, so I don't have to worry about it. Some ovens don't get that warm on top, but for those of that do, keep in mind you want this at a room temperature space. You also, if you feel necessary, cover it with parchment paper or plastic. However, I'm not too worried about it. It's only 20 minutes. It shouldn't dry out that far, okay? But you can also just use a typical kitchen towel to help also, all right? You just guide it, and that'll keep it relatively safe. It's airflow that causes a skin to form on the dough, and once that happens, it doesn't stretch or expand as well. So that's the methodology behind it. Now we're going to do the same thing, but smaller versions. Sometimes you have to play with the dough a bit. Do some culinary math in your head, no big deal. Okay. Yep, I'm happy with that guy. Get some more flour, do a light sprinkle. Again, little bowl of flour to help you out, no big deal. And you just do sprinkles at a time. Remember, you can always add more flour. It's hard to add the hydration or water back in, so only do small sprinkles of flour at a time. Another reason why I love these rolling pins is you can kind of just roll along. It's very one with the body, I think is the best term I would like to use there. Now if you get an uneven roll and it's a little thicker on one end, that's okay. Just a little minor massage. If you get a fold, don't beat yourself up. Again, we're covering in cheese. It's gonna be okay. You can also kind of guide it with the next roll. Alrighty. So now I'm gonna grab this again. I'm gonna scoop this guy up. Place them here, and again, roll, tuck, 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 roll, tuck. Twist. The final press. And then again. Okay. Excellent. Then we just let those rest. Another thing too is, as you're taking notes, which I encourage, do it on paper. If you want to have it digital and then print it, that's fine. I don't recommend taking notes on our smartphone and then trying to follow smartphone while baking bread. The flour gets everywhere. That's the lesson here. Okay, and you get a lot of flour dust kicking up, okay? And flour dust is not always fun or friendly with electronics, so you get used to having a piece of paper around, okay? So it's just part of what we have to do as bakers, okay? It's gonna be all right. But what you will need for our ajori hachapuri is 10.4 ounces of bread flour, 3 ounces of water, 2.7 ounces of milk, 1.1 ounce of sugar, 0.2 ounces of sea salt, and 0.2 ounces of instant dry yeast. Okay? And then instant dry yeast is equivalent to about a tablespoon, or teaspoon, sorry. It's equivalent to about a teaspoon. So what I do is I have my flour and my salt in here. I did not add the yeast yet, and I did that on purpose, okay? Using a 1/4 teaspoon here to give me my teaspoon. Alrighty. And the other thing too I want to bring out is, you know, I bake a lot, so I buy the big jar of instant yeast. However, if you're only baking on occasion, it's easier to get the little packets of yeast, but pay attention to expiration dates, okay? Because if you go past the expiration date, it may not be active for you. This is technically very asleep, but it's still alive. So if it's past its expiration date and you try to use it, it may not be any good for you. So that's a key rule in baking. All right, I'm gonna mix my stuff together. I'm gonna get my clipboard out of the way. Another important thing is that it's important to work with your hands. Don't get flimsy. You can wear vinyl gloves if you want to, but you want to get used to how the dough feels on you, okay? So I'm gonna add my water, then the milk. Just because I know me, I'm gonna have some flour on the table ready to go. I've got my bench scraper ready to go. And you want a fairly wide surface to work with, okay? So I just use a bowl to do the initial incorporation because I find that's easier. And then I just get all that on the table. And then I just go to town on it. It looks a little flaky at first, but don't worry. You just smash it into the dry, cover it, scoop, mash it into the dry, scoop, then scoop. If it's a little sticky and you got all those dry spots, perfect. Use it to mop it up. It's a very interactive activity. I do not like the amount of hydration on my fingers, so I'm going to incorporate that into the dough. If it's still sticking, that's fine. You just grab some flour and then you do the rub, okay? You just rub your fingers together, fairly large amount of friction. You don't want to go too fast because then it flies everywhere, but you do want to do a nice firm rub on the hands. Okay, and then I just pat. All right, now to knead this, and to do basic kneading, okay, you take the dough, you fold it, press it in at the fold. Fold it, press it in at the fold. Fold it, press it in at the fold. And then eventually, you just keep going. And then once it's together and you know no pieces are going to go away, you can just start slamming it. This helps with gluten development. Bread with baking is amazing if you need to release a bit of frustration. It's a fun time and it's soothing. Very therapeutic. Then you need some more. Now for me, I'm a big guy, so I can just kind of use the weight of my body. If you're finding you have to press, no worries. Do it slower. Use the weight of your whole body. Maybe 2 hands. Still, the whole concept of get that fold, push it in. Fold, push it in. And then you just keep going. If your arm gets tired, that's okay. You would do this for about 5 minutes. And you can alternate hands like that. And you can just keep going. And if you have a playlist, because you want to knead this for about 5 minutes, pick something you can jam to about this speed, slower, faster if you want to. And that way, all you got to do is play your song. And when it's over, you're done. And then you don't have to time anything. You just go and go. And it's been a fun time kneading, getting some good workout in. And you're one with the dough. It's just you and the dough in the kitchen. Okay, so 5 minutes have passed. Been kneading this for a minute. And as you can see, it's fairly smooth. Then you press, it starts to come back. That's how you know gluten development has. I could go a little bit longer because it's not fully bouncing back. But when it does a full spring, what we call in baking a full spring, then it's time to let it rest. And this rests for an hour, which is the dough we use to shape with. Okay? And what's another important thing is cover it with plastic wrap. So I'm going to get this in a bowl. I'm going to cover it in plastic wrap, and then we'll go and take a break. Okay, so we're back. Our dough is rested for 20 minutes. And that's a fairly good rise. The dough springs back. I'm comfortable with that. Now we add our cheese. This is our mixture of feta and mozzarella. Okay? 10.6 ounces of mozzarella and then another 10 ounces of feta. And then after that, you just kind of pile it on. I don't have a good culinary term, you just pile it on. A nice hill. Because remember, this is going to melt down. So, and if a little bit gets on the side, that's just extra flavor. And I'm kind of smashing it in there on purpose. Then our small individual portion. Again, kind of smash the first level in there. And then you form a hill. You do want a small hill here. And don't worry if cheese drips off the sides, that's why we put it on parchment paper. The oven has been preheating at 500 degrees. And then we stick these in there for 20 minutes. If you love cheese, you're always going to want to add more. That's a natural feeling, don't worry about that. And now that the bread is in the oven, we'll check back in 20 minutes. And that's ajururi hachapuri. Notice the nice brown edges, nice and firm. But while it's fresh out of the oven, you finish it with an egg yolk. So you get that in there, you hold it firmly, and then you just stir. This adds a nice silky texture, nice enriching. You stir that in there. Look at that. And it cooks the egg yolk, so you don't got to worry about all that. The advantage of these individual sizes is I took an egg yolk and I broke it, and then I just eyeball it. I get about half of the egg yolk in each one. And again, same concept. I'll turn it so I can, because I'm right-handed. And then I just hold this down to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. Again, the advantage of a knob at the end. And it doesn't see how the cheese is on the sides and it still looks fantastic. That's the idea, you know. That huge knob at the end, perfect. That's perfect. Because then you can just tear that off and dip it into your cheese. Okay. And a fun little test, although don't do this before serving, is to see how long you get that stretch and steam going. That's how you know contests of how long you can make the stretch. But anyway, there you have your Ajorian cheese bread. Until next time, everyone, remember, scale properly and be one with the dough. Enjoy, y'all.